This is Fifth, and you're watching the XJW Fifth YouTube channel. I'm very excited and honored to have on this particular episode the founder of avoidjw.org. Jason, I wanted to give you a warm welcome and sincerely thank you for taking time out to speak with me this afternoon.
No, thank you very much, Cliff. It's an honor to be interviewed by you. Thank you very much.
I appreciate that. So if there are any who are currently watching that are not familiar with avoidjw.org, we'll be speaking about that a little bit later. But first of all, I wanted to know a little bit more about you to start off with. So how is it that you became involved with Jehovah's Witnesses?
Well, way back in about the late 1970s, my mother got baptized as Jehovah's Witness. It was in 1979. I come from a family of about 5 siblings. Well, not about 5 siblings, but actually 5 siblings, and I'm second eldest. But my dad never became a Jehovah's Witness, and what happened in the beginning was that half my family would go to the meetings, and the other half would go to my grandparents, who would bring us to Mass, Catholic Church. Mm. So I used to go to Catholic Church up until about the age of 8 or 9, and then my father got a little bit more relaxed, and my mother was allowed then to bring both the older children with her younger children to the meetings. And then I suppose I started to go preaching at about age 9, and then I got baptized then in 1995. And so I'm just one of 2 siblings that ever got baptized, myself and my sister, my younger sister. My older sister and both my brothers never got baptized as Jehovah's Witnesses. So I was then disfellowshipped in 1997, so just about 2 years after being baptized. I then got reinstated in 1998, and I was doing okay, but I was suffering an awful lot from depression. I was taking medication and all the rest, and I just wasn't having a good time in that 3-year period. And then in 2001, November 2001, I got disfellowshipped again. And the strange thing about being disfellowshipped the second time was that I actually went to the judicial meeting, which I didn't do the first time around. I just let them off and do their own thing. And I suppose I was a little bit shocked by it because, well, I got disfellowshipped for fornication. So I suppose I went there feeling sorry and feeling repentant, or so I thought. And so they ask an awful lot of questions. Too many questions, very personal questions, intrusive questions. And I found that quite shocking, but I was very forthcoming and told them all that I could actually remember of the events. And I couldn't remember a huge amount because there was quite a bit of alcohol involved as well at the time. But anyways, the elders had decided that they're going to disfellowship me. And I was shocked and taken aback by it because I thought if you're repentant, that they might reprove you and take all your privileges off you and you'd be able to sort things out, but that wasn't the case. I appealed it, and in the appeal, the same thing, they upheld the original elders' decision. So I said to my mother that I'm not going to go back because I don't feel that they dealt with me properly. But I was fully of the belief that Jehovah's Witnesses had the truth at this stage. So even though I wasn't going back, I felt that they had the truth. And if Armageddon comes in the morning, you got to realize this is 2001, right after 9/11. So 9/11 was September 9th. Was it?
September 11th.
2001. And I got this fellowship November 1st, 2001. So I thought the end of the world was coming. You know, all the flights were down and there was a whole load of stuff happening around the world. America was going into Iraq and all these sort of things. So I just thought the end is coming. Armageddon's going to come. These guys have disfellowshipped me, and I was repentant. I don't know what's going on, but if God goes and destroys me, they're going to be held responsible. So that was the mental mindset I had at the time.
Wow.
Now that I look back, it's kind of quite comical. But so I remained physically out, but mentally in as a Jehovah's Witness. And this was going on all the way through from 2001 all the way up until 2014. So about February 2014, 2 Jehovah's Witness elders contacted me in the town that I currently reside. So from a different hall, I'm about 40 miles away from my original city that I used to live in. And they said that they'd like to come and visit me if that's okay. I said, yeah, that's no problem whatsoever. So they called out in March just before the memorial, and we had a chat for about 75 minutes. And that was a great chat. I got to be able to say what I felt. I said I knew what I was disfellowshipped for. But the problem is I don't know why I was disfellowshipped, because I was always of the opinion that if you're repentant, then you should be forgiven. And they seemed quite shocked, and they said they'll look into it and get back to me on it. But would I come to the memorial this weekend or next, whatever day it was meant to be after that period? And I said, yeah, I'll come along. Yeah, no problem. So I went to the memorial, and they asked me to come to the special talk on the following Sunday. Now, my things came up and I wasn't able to go to it, but I didn't hear from them again, except when they started coming around door to door. And I had been out, and I just driving into my driveway, and they were walking by, and one of the persons walking by was one of the elders that had been in my house.
Okay.
And I said, why have I not heard from you? He says, I thought you weren't interested because you didn't come to the special talk. I said, things come up. I said, I'm still interested to find out why I was not disfellowshipped. Did you even look into it? No, I'll have to get back to you on that. So I says, yeah, please do, because I'm very interested to know why I was disfellowshipped. Yeah. So that was it. In the meantime, my brother then asked me, have you ever researched Jehovah's Witnesses? I said, no. I'm not going to research that. That's all apostate lies. And, there's a lot of people, Satan's world, they want to make Jehovah's Witnesses look bad, and it's all lies. He says, well, Jay, if it's lies, won't you know it? Why don't you just look at it? Well, what if it's facts? What if all that you know has all been lies, or that they've covered up a whole load of things? I said, all right, I'll have a look and see. So I started Googling Jehovah's Witnesses, and I never ever heard of the child abuse problem at all. And then I was hearing about all the other stuff, like all the 607, my brain is going fried.
Blood transfusions.
Blood transfusions, yeah. Child abuse, and just a whole load of different doctrinal issues, and Betzarum, these type of things. I had never seen or heard or any of this before, and it was shocking. And then I discovered that they had secret policy letters, and that was even more shocking. And then I found out that they had their own elder manual. And then when I started reading that, I started to put things together. This is why I was disfellowshipped. It wasn't just them making up that they just didn't want me to be a Jehovah's Witness. They were following a book, and the book told them step by step what to do. And that's why they were asking all these intrusive questions. So it all started to make sense. And that really was kind of where my whole beliefs in the whole system fell apart, because up until that point, I just thought it was 7 men, four elders that were on my judicial committee, and 3 elders who were on the appeal. 7 men I just thought were just men that had got things all wrong. But no, they were following procedure, and they followed it to the letter.
Wow.
So that's when my whole faith just fell apart. No longer believed any of it. And then I started questioning, well, maybe Armageddon doesn't exist either. Maybe it's all just something just to control us all. And that's when everything started to come into place for me as a person, to find that, well, let's see exactly what is going on.
Right.
And then I started questioning other things. The whole, where does the money go? And who really runs the organization? So it was from there that everything started to go, where I suppose I laid a foundation for avoidjw.org.
I see. So that brings us, that's a nice transition into the next topic, which is avoidjw.org. Could you speak to us a little bit about that, especially for those who may not be familiar with it?
Yeah, so avoidjw.org is quite a large website. It's actually huge. It's got more information about Jehovah's Witnesses than you'll ever find on jw.org. For example, it's got all the literature that you'll find on jw.org in English, but it'll also have a lot more that isn't on there. It has all the literature, all the Watchtowers going back to the 1800s, all the Awakes going back to the 1970s, and all the Golden Age and all the other stuff, and all the booklets and all the brochures. And everything that Watchtower has ever published is on there, bar maybe a handful of documents that we may not have. It also has all the policy documents. So all the policies that Watchtower have issued over the years, they're on there. quite a lot, some going back as far as the early 1900s. I think there might even be some from the 1800s.
Mm.
And these are policy documents that are either issued to the bodies of elders, to pioneers, to congregations, to circuit overseers, even to branches. So these are letters that are created and designed by the service committee that are partially operated by the governing body. So we have a huge amount of information that people can go on there and find out a huge amount about Jehovah's Witnesses. If they knew nothing about Jehovah's Witnesses, they'll have a huge, broader understanding of the religion by accessing their literature on there.
And what's interesting about that is even people who are Jehovah's Witnesses and may have been for decades will have never seen any of this information because it is very confidential correspondence between people in certain positions. So, you know, isn't that interesting? You can belong to this organization, not understand the policies. Like you said, when you walked into that judicial committee, you didn't know what was going on and you didn't understand the result. And that's pretty consistent with the vast majority of Jehovah's Witnesses, just for the simple fact that they're not, most of them are not elders.
Mm-hmm. That's correct. And in fact, there's actually a number of elders that have said to me, either by email or on Twitter or on Facebook, and they've said that they don't even have or heard of any of the information, some of the information that's on Avoid JW. They've learned more about the religion from Avoid JW than they've ever known at all in maybe the 40 or 50 years as Jehovah's Witnesses. Amazing. And I think that's quite incredible, especially when you consider that the person who set up Avoid JW hasn't been a Jehovah's Witness since 2001.
Right.
So this is someone who isn't even an active member that's able to access the information and provide it to the public. I think that's quite incredible, because I'm sure a lot of people have considered that it must be someone that's an active Jehovah's Witness that's running the site, that's high up in the organization, and that's not the case.
That's incredible. And then just kind of furthering that thought, you weren't even a baptized Jehovah's Witness for that long, as you kind of gave us your history. And so it's pretty amazing. Yeah,
so I've been a Jehovah's Witness from February 1995 until November 2001, and take out a year in between as well for being disfellowshipped and being reinstated. So yeah, 5 years is the total amount that I've ever been a Jehovah's Witness. And when I say a Jehovah's Witness, I mean a Jehovah's Witness in good standing, because I still consider myself a Jehovah's Witness, and we'll talk about that later maybe.
Right, understood. So can you talk to us a little bit about just compiling the information? Did you automatically just have access to everything you needed, or is there anything you can speak on in terms of that?
Yeah, no. So I didn't have anything at first. When I created Avoid JW, I was just thinking, well, people need to avoid Jehovah's Witnesses because they're a highly secretive organization.
Right.
And unless you really know exactly what they are, you're best avoiding them. And that's why I created the site. And then I thought, well, what am I going to do? What direction am I going to go? And I found JW Facts being one of the best websites out there for providing information to Jehovah's Witnesses. You want a JW Facts, you can find out everything relating to their doctrine and how they twist things. Paul Grundy's just done a fantastic job there. But what I found with JW Facts was that when you were looking at the information, he would quote things, but you were looking at it and wondering, well, did it really say that? How can I access that document to be able to prove what Paul has said? Mm. So I thought, well, why don't I do that with Avoid JW? Put all the literature up online so that people that go to JW Facts can actually read what he says, what he has quoted, take what he's quoted from Avoid JW, download it, and then be able to compare. So I just went online looking for literature and found a whole load. I had my own, I scanned a few documents, and I then went onto the archive sites and downloaded a whole load of things. So I started downloading a whole load of information and putting this into one location, being Avoid JW. Put it all up there. And then what happened was with the policy documents, because there was this huge mega file, policy documents, but it was a huge file. It was over 1 gig. I think it was 1.2 gigs. Wow. And it was nearly impossible to go through that document and find the policy document that you need for whatever reason, because there's a lot of people that will need these policy documents for maybe it's child custody cases, child abuse cases, whatever it is. You need the information from those policies to prove that Watchtower did X, Y, and Z. So I stripped them out. I took out all the PDFs individually and segregated them and named them. And basically then put them up on the website in a searchable format, basically wrote out the title of the files for the policy documents. So that made them easy to find if you did a search online. Avoid JW would come up with that file and you just click on it and you'd find it was up on Google Drive and you download. So this was quite dangerous for Watchtower because suddenly what was happening was they knew there was this mega file and that there was policy documents banding about across the internet, but it wasn't bothering them because it was not a huge issue because only a handful of people could get them and knew where to go to find them. But now what someone was doing was actually putting them up online and providing a searchable means for people to find something. So all they had to do was child abuse policy in Google, and then suddenly Avoid JW comes up with a whole load of files that might relate to child abuse, and they'd be all policy documents, and they were all issued by Watchtower, and they're all legitimate files. And this was bothering Watchtower. So much so that since January 2017, they have been looking to try and shut down Avoid JW or find the source of who is given these policy documents online, right? But before I go there, I should also mention, so as I was putting all these policy documents up, active Jehovah's Witnesses at varying levels within the organization were looking at these policy documents and saying, wow, you have a lot here, and this is great, but you're missing some of the newer files. I'll just email them on to you. So then I was being emailed policy documents here, there, and everywhere, and the same way the manuals, like the elder manuals and what have you, they were sending them on, and I was like, this is great. And the ones that they weren't sending on, they were sending to other people, other ex-JWs, who would then send them to me and say, I got these from my own sources. So sources, I have some of my own direct sources, and then we have other sources. And this is great because what you have is you have a huge network of sources, and they're all being fed into all different people. And then they're fed up into Avoid JW, or they're fed up into the likes of JW Server, some other sites, that they get their own files. Or the likes of Mike and Ken, they get their own files, and the likes of Atlantis, he gets his own files. And then they all feed them up into Avoid JW. So this has been a great way for us to get a huge amount of data about Jehovah's Witnesses, and it makes it extremely tricky and quite complex, and so complex that Watchtower don't know how to stop it. They really don't know how to stop it. So since January 2017, they were trying to find out where the sources of all these files were going. They knew by at least June or July 2017 that Jason Wynne was the one operating Avoid JW and putting the files up. But what we don't really want him, because he's not really the issue, because he's a nobody. We want to get the persons who are supplying him with the files.
Right.
So they continued issuing subpoenas to Google and subpoenas to Godaddy, and particularly to Google, because Google had a load of drives across the internet that files were being downloaded from and that were linked to from Avoid JW. So they assumed that these must be, some of these links may be Jehovah's Witnesses. Mm-hmm. So when they actually subpoenaed Google, Google then had to issue them with all the information. And by January 2018, so we're talking a full year, it took them to be able to find all the IP addresses and all the names of the individuals related to those Google Drive addresses and find out who they were. And they found them all. They found every single individual. And those people were Jason Wynne, Jason Wynne, Jason Wynne, Jason Wynne, etc., etc. So they were frustrated, extremely frustrated, to the point that they just sent me, and it issued me in February 23rd, they issued me a letter, a really hard-hitting letter saying that I need to cease and desist, and I need to fill in some form and submit to their court in New York, and if I don't, they'll sue me to the full extent of the law for damages and all the rest. And I just looked at the letter and I said, well, that's quite good, but they wanted me to shut down Avoid JW and JW sites and jw.servehttp.com. Those three websites they wanted to shut down. Okay. The only thing is that avoidjw.org isn't owned by me. jwsites.org isn't owned by me. The only thing that was owned by me was a server called jw.servehttp.com. And that was a server that I had in my house. And I wrote an email back to Philip Brumley. Philip Brumley is general counsel for Watchtower. Now, there was 3 individuals that were originally involved in this. There was Philip Brumley, general counsel for Watchtower, and there was Mario Moreno, Mario F. Moreno, and he's associate general counsel for Watchtower. And then the first subpoena, or it wasn't even a subpoena, I'm not sure what kind of the legal document. It was just, I think it was just a legal letter. And it came out of an external law firm in Connecticut from a guy called Stephen B. Simonis. And Stephen B. Simonis, I then found out, was actually the son of Gerald Frank Simonis. And Gerald Frank Simonis, if you look in the inside cover of any Watchtower Wake magazines, it gives you the two names of the, one is the president of the Watchtower Bible and Tract Society of New York, and that's Leon Weaver, and the other name is G.F. Simonis, who is the Secretary Treasurer. He's also, I think Gerald, or Jerry as they call him, he's also an accountant, so, money man.
Okay.
So it's interesting that his sons and his daughter, or daughter-in-law at least, are lawyers. So it was his lawyer first. When they discovered that I knew who he was and connected the dots, then they took him out of the picture and just used the 2 most senior lawyers, which was Philip Brumley and Mario Moreno. So they were issuing subpoenas left, right, and centre. And I got access to all of them. I just requested them and got them. And so that's where everything went. So when I got this thing from Philip, I looked at it and I'm just like, I'm not going to sign this. I definitely can't sign it anyways, even if I want. So an email was sent back to Philip, telling them that I've shut down what I have control of, and that's the server. So I dismantled the server. I actually took the whole computer apart, destroyed it, and it was there left out in my yard for a couple of weeks, just in bits, and then eventually I just brought it to the dump to get rid of it. So the actual drive was then sent off to Faith Leaks. Faith Leaks took the drive, and they are in possession of it. I no longer have any access to any of these files that were given away. So Faith Leaks have the files, and I believe since Friday, at least Friday of this week, some of my sources have told me that they've restored all the links between Avoid JW and the files that people were accessing. So although they have been down for a couple of months, I believe that they're all back in operation. So this is the first time it's been announced, I think. So that's
breaking news.
Breaking news.
Definitely. Now, that has to be frustrating to Watchtower because, as you said, they spent a year just trying to find the source of the leaks, which all led back to you. So it was an exercise in futility. And even after you destroyed the server, it's all back now. So that has to be something that's just making them say, wow, we just might not be able to put a lid on this. Yeah.
So what they have to do, see, when it comes to allegations of copyright infringement, they would have to get an injunction against me if they have reason to believe that I am the one infringing on the copyright. But that's not the case because I don't operate Avoid JW. So they would have to prove that first of all, and then when they go and find who does run it, then they'll realize that it isn't me. And then secondly, the files aren't stored on me, not in my possession. They're in someone else's possession now. So they would have to go after those guys. I think they're going to be struggling for quite some time, and the way they're going about it, because I tell you what, and this is the first time told anyone, is I've already asked Watchtower to negotiate with me. And the easiest thing for them to do would probably be to negotiate. But they don't negotiate with apostates. They nearly think we're kind of some sort of terrorists. We're not. We have our own agendas. And some of our agendas are actually noble. I mean, the whole shunning process is absolutely ridiculous. You're ripping families apart just so that you can pick numbers. But it isn't working. They're reducing numbers. Numbers are going down, and people are actually starting to wake up and they're starting to realize hang on a second, why do I have to shun this person? What does it do? I mean, I shun him in this world, and then we all get into the paradise and we never see him again anyway. So why are we judging now and judging then in the future?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, live and let live. I mean, when I wasn't being shunned by my family, because I wasn't shunned by my family until 2012, just before I got married. My mother called out and said that she's not going to be talking to me anymore. And she said she's going to have to shun me from here on in. And I says, okay, ma'am, if that's what you want to do. And I was fine with it. I was letting her be. But it was really bothering me. And I think what happened then was I saw on Facebook my sister, who's a Jehovah's Witness as well, she had taken a picture and she had put it up of all her family, and she'd named everyone in it, all my brothers and sisters, who aren't Jehovah's Witnesses, I should point out, except for me.
Mm-hmm.
So all of us are lined up in this picture, and she named everyone bar me. And it was like, this is my family, and I'm not named. And I lost the plot. I'm like, what do you think, that I don't even exist now? And that really bothered me. And then, so when I found out all of this about Watchtower and hiding information and being so secretive towards their members, towards their current members, not just their ex-members, to everyone, this is a highly secretive organization. And any elder that seems to think that they're privileged to have some secrets, they have no idea how much secrets are hidden from them. So this was bothering me. So what happened was I'm now being shunned by my family. And if they never shunned me, I probably let them off, right? I was not going to become a Jehovah's Witness again. But now I'm being actively shunned. So now what they have is they woke the beast, in other words. And so what the shunning is doing is waking the beast in a lot of people who probably wouldn't give a damn about Watchtower and what Watchtower does. And that's affecting the numbers, because when people like me wake, and then we know an awful lot of people, and we have the power to be able to inform a lot of people quite quickly. And I'm saying quickly because Avoid JW wasn't set up until October 2014. We're only just over 3 years in. And look how much damage we've been able to do to Watchtower.
Right.
And they didn't need that. Mm-hmm. And they shouldn't have done it. They should just leave families alone. Leave them well enough alone. You have enough to be doing. If you want to have members, let the members join. There's an awful lot of people that no matter what Watchtower does and what Watchtower doesn't do, they'll still be Jehovah's Witnesses. And that's perfectly fine. And the thing with Avoid JW is we're not out trying to stop people being Jehovah's Witness. I say, if you want to be Jehovah's Witness, you be a Jehovah's Witness. I have no problem with that. Go right ahead. The problem I have is that you're being extremely secretive and you're being too controlling of people's lives, those who are members and those who are not members. And then you think that you can control the lives of those who are not members and then go into court and try and do things to ex-members and then say, oh, they're not members. But yet you're trying to control our lives by taking our families away from us. Well, don't expect us just to sit down and get a kicking. A lot of us are strong enough to stand up, and we're not going to be bullied, not by people that seem to think that they have an entity supporting them. Because if they have an entity supporting them, you would have seen a lot different results than we're actually seeing now. I mean, the results we're seeing, especially when you see the likes of Candace Conte and then the Padron case and a number of other ones, they're all winning their court case, and the same with Fessler. And then we see what's going on in the Netherlands, we see what's going on in Norway, we see what's going on in Ireland. Things are happening. And if Watchtower were doing things right, Jehovah, as they seem to think, is supporting them and their God's organization, Jehovah's right behind them, we'd see a lot different results, but we're not. Watchtower are losing. You see what's happening in Russia. They haven't won. They didn't win any of their cases there. And now I suppose Russia is a different ballgame. But at the same time, if God was with them, you'd see a different result.
Absolutely.
You know, and I mean, even Philip Brumley, he had in February, or actually in September 2017, I think it was. No, it wasn't. It was even earlier than that. It was September 2016, maybe. I'm not sure exactly when it was.
Okay.
But he had stood up and he up to the legal department, and he said to the legal department that they're going to go to court, and Russia is like a train or something like that, but he doesn't know that we have God behind us, and he's going to see something different. And then what they then did was set up the whole letter writing campaign. So you had 8.2 million members writing letters, and a lot of them writing up to 3 or 4 letters. So you could say they had about 40 or 50 million letters sent to Russia. And what did it do? All it proved was that Watchtower is well able to get its members to do whatever the fuck they want.
Mm-hmm.
Excuse my language, but that's it. That's all it did. They can say, write a letter to Russia. Oh, sure, write a letter to Bobby Sands or whatever. They can get people to do things. That's all it proves. It doesn't prove unity. It just proves control. And what did it do? Russia didn't change, didn't budge. They're still banned in that country, and things are looking a lot worse for the members. And then, but look at the top members within there that are the ones very outspoken about Russia's actions towards them. They're now in Latvia. It's awful easy to be saying whatever you like about Russia and then be comfortable a couple of countries away and say whatever, oh, they're bad guys and all the rest. Yeah, but you're not sitting there in a house just down the road where there's a whole lot of people coming down with their axes or whatever they want to do and pull you out of your house or whatever. Mm-hmm. So it's a worrying situation for the Russian Jehovah's Witnesses, but I think Watchtower itself has a lot to answer for in that regard.
For sure. And especially what you're talking about is, these people that are now in other countries that aren't even in Russia, and they're kind of antagonizing to a degree the government. And like you said, they're not the ones that have to deal with it. The ones that have to deal with it are the rank and file Jehovah's Witnesses in Russia, which, as we continue to highlight, there's a lot of things that they don't see that's going on, within the organization. So they're not armed with the knowledge, and they have people from the outside that are, continuing to potentially make matters worse. I mean, Jehovah's Witnesses, people, high-ranking Jehovah's Witnesses from the outside of the country that are potentially making things even, more difficult for them.
Yeah.
So,
actually, another point I'd like to make about Russia is there's a number of news articles that have been written about refugees, JW refugees moving across over into Finland. Mm-hmm. And if you read the article, it would make you think that there's 175,000 Jehovah's Witnesses in Russia. And when you read the articles and look at them objectively, you begin to realize that it's not a huge amount of Russians going into Finland. There's about 40 or 50. But the article are worded in such a way that they're really being persecuted, and so they're running off into Finland. But it's not like Syria, where you have hundreds of thousands of refugees trying to leave the country to save their lives. No, what you have tens of members. That's it, tens, not even hundreds. Tens of members leaving Russia to go into Finland. So they're not really being persecuted. They're just going over there because life is a little bit safer, because being a Jehovah's Witness in Russia isn't very safe. But it's not as detrimental as, say, living in Syria.
Right. Of course. Wow, very interesting. One thing I wanted to kind of go back to is, we were talking about all these people at these different levels of the organization who have access. Your access is dependent on where you are in the hierarchy of Watchtower. And there's something that a lot of people, and I would venture to say, especially a lot of people who are not close to the United States, where the hub of, obviously the organization's headquarters is here. And I feel like as you get further and further removed from that, the knowledge of the governing body, the branch committees, and how all of these things work is actually diminished even further. And linguistically, I think the same thing kind of happens. What would you say is important for people to understand about some of these structures, whether it's the governing body or some of those other structures high up in the hierarchy?
Yeah, that's a very interesting question, because the structure of the Jehovah's Witnesses is extremely complex, and it's purposely done that way for legal reasons. Mm-hmm. So we have the governing body of 10 members. Now, you hear me say 10 members rather than 8 members, because I believe there's actually 10. 8 that are public, and there's 2 other ones. The other 2 members are Joel Dellinger and William
Turner.
Turner, that's the fellow, William Turner Jr. I believe that those two are also governing body members, or they'll become governing body members at some stage. But the governing body are responsible at the very top level of controlling the organization. But the governing body are specifically left kind of external to one another, just a kind of a little nucleus, and they are not connected in any way legally to any of the organizations. So the Watchtower Bible Tract Society of New York, of Pennsylvania, of the Christian Congregation of Jehovah's Witnesses, they're all legal entities, but the governing body are not linked to them at all. And that's purposely done so that you've heard of the likes of Gerrit Losh when he went into court and said that he doesn't answer to any of that. That's why he can say that, because he is not connected to any of these. Now, what he does is he provides information that is reviewed by the legal department, and the legal department might be a part connected to these legal entities, but they are not connected to them. What you do have is the helpers to the governing body, and this is where the links are made. So what you have is you have your governing body, and then you have the helpers linked in here, but the link then between the governing body and the legal entities is made there. So the helpers of the governing body, a lot of them are directors of these legal entities. So when underneath the governing body is 6 departments. You have the likes of the service department, the personnel department, the teaching department, the translation committees, all these different committees. So the governing bodies sit on them. We have the helpers sitting on them, and those helpers also are sitting in on the legal entities. And that's how the whole thing is connected in at the very top level. And then from the committees, then everything is filtered down all the way down. So you have them providing information to, particularly we'd say like the service committee provides information to other branches and gives them instructions on how a service department is supposed to operate when elders call in, that sort of thing. The service committee is probably the most intriguing one, because they also provide the policy documents, and so all the policy documents are written by them, and they're filtered down to all the branches, and then down to all the congregation elders. So you then also have, from below the committees, then is you have the branch committees. That's the ones out in the various countries. And then below them then is your circuit overseers who report in directly to their branch committees, who then report in up and up.
Right.
And then so the bodies of elders in a particular circuit are all linked in to those circuit overseers, and so on up. So everything is a hierarchy. As you can see, when I'm pointing down, everything is up, and down. So it's a hierarchy. Anyone that seems to think that Jehovah's Witnesses aren't a hierarchy are very mistaken, or just don't seem to understand the whole process, or don't know the process. And a lot don't know the process because Jehovah's Witnesses at the very top level want to keep it all secret. But that's exactly how the process works. Starts at the top with the governing body, then you have the committees, the 6 committees. The 6 committees are kind of interlinked with the legal entities. Then you have the branch committees around the world who also have their own legal entities. And then you have your circuit overseers, your elders, your ministerial servants, and down to the ordinary congregation member.
Okay, so obviously you just explained how everything works with the committees and with the governing body. But as I understand, it's actually the legal department that is coming after the likes of you. So how is it that the legal department fits in with that entire structure that you just explained?
So very interesting question, Cliff. Thanks very much for that. Yeah. So when you have the legal department, well, what you have is your general counsel. In any corporation, a general counsel really sits up there at the very top and provides legal advice to the top folk, who then feed it down as need be. So what's happened with the copyright with Jehovah's Witnesses is that general counsel said to the governing body, or the governing body has said to general counsel, how do we stop this guy? And they've provided suggestions. And part of that is like, what do we need to do? What should we do? Well, what you should do is write articles that can stop our members writing or distributing our literature. We need to get them to stop it, because if they stop, then we can stop the likes of Apostates distributing our literature. But we can't do that because this guy isn't making any money off it. He hasn't looked for money. It's all freely available. So courts will just look at us and go, what are you trying to do here? You're distributing all this literature yourself for free anyway. So why are you trying to stop this guy? So what we have to do is we got to stop the guy here. We'll stop everyone distributing anything, just send them to jw.org. That's the thing that we should be telling everyone to do.
Right.
So that's what they did. So the governing body then went to the writing committee. The writing committee then wrote an article, and the April 2018 article, pages 30, 31, wrote all about copyright. And this is our copyright. Stop distributing our literature. If anyone wants it, then they must go to jw.org and download it from there. They also changed their policy document on there about, at one time they had it in there that you could send an article or anything, a PDF by email. That was okay, but they've removed that now. They don't want anyone doing anything because they want to be able to go to court and say, we got to stop this guy and he's cost us so much money. We want to sue him for about $100,000 or whatever it is they want to throw out there. But you can be sure they're going to throw out a huge amount of money or whatever if they can. So that's how the legal department fits in. It's right up there at the very top. It's not down at the lower level, it's at the top level, and they provide advice to the governing body who then filters it all the way down. And so that's where we're at, and that's why that article was written. And it was mainly written for the likes of OIJW, but it was written for other YouTube channels as well. You know, there's an awful lot of YouTube channels that were just taking the material and just showing it out there.
Right.
So they're trying to stop that as well.
Understood. One thing that I just recently noticed, I actually commented on it on some of my social media platforms, is there's a new study edition of the Watchtower that has just recently come out, the August 2018. That's the latest one. And it has an article in it entitled, "Do You Have the Facts?" And it's very strongly and explicitly talking about only using jw.org for information. Don't read anything else. It's a waste of time and things like that. Just after listening to you talk, I'm wondering if there might be a connection between an article like that, like the August 2018, and what you're mentioning as far as the legal department's relationship with the governing body and some of the other committees.
Yeah, I believe that the legal department would advise the governing body here as well, because it's nearly impossible for them to address the child abuse problem. It's a worldwide problem now, and it seems to be cropping up everywhere. And there's a lot of news articles on it. So the legal department's best thing to do is to write an article to tell people to look at the facts, and then have them just go to three locations, be it the JW Broadcasting, jw.org, and their newsroom, and just stay there. And if they stay there, then they won't be asking too many questions. They'll see what we want them to see, and they'll see nothing more. So the legal department would advise the governing body then would have fed it down to the writing committee would then write an article on it, and they would make it explicitly clear, and then use the word facts. I mean, if you look at that article, they use the word facts 15 times.
Wow.
Now, the problem I have, and you know what, the funny thing was, is every time I saw the word facts, all that kept coming into my head is JW facts.
Yeah, yes, how ironic.
For the facts.
Yeah.
But anyway, the interesting thing about the article is that they don't mention anything specifically about any particular subject. That's number one. Number two, if you were to consider just the child abuse issue and you want to know the facts, and you went to the JW newsroom, there is not a single article about child abuse on there to find out any facts about anything there. There's nothing. They've never reported on the fact, and this is a fact, that they have given money to at least 3 individuals in California, the Padron case being one, Kansas County being another, and then you have over in Philadelphia, you have Stephanie Fessler, they paid her last year. So, you know, they have paid out money. They're the facts. The facts are that they have paid out money, but you won't see that on the newsroom. So when we talk about facts, what exactly are they talking about? Because then if you went to JW Broadcasting, and then you have the likes of Stephen Lett, one of the governing bodies, saying that we permit pedophiles. No one's ever said that they permit pedophiles. The way he has worded is so clever, but what we're saying is that you allow pedophiles to remain as members as long as there isn't 2 witnesses and they haven't made a confession. On those bases, you do permit pedophiles to remain as members, and you do not anything, and you don't report it to the police if there's no mandatory reporting law. That is a fact. But you won't find that on JW Broadcasting. And then on JW.org, the only thing you find on JW.org is the numerous articles that they've written over the years in Awake magazine. But that's nothing. That's not going to stop paedophilia. I mean, a lot of secular magazines and books have been written about paedophilia. Has that stopped paedophilia? No. But as you as an organization or any organization, look, we have to admit that child abuse happens everywhere. Anywhere where there's adults and there's children, there's the possibility of child abuse. And people need to realize that. And the governing body, first and foremost, need to understand that. Once we know that child abuse does happen, it's how we deal with it is what is the crux of the matter. Exactly. And covering it up and trying to hide it and put it under the thing and tell the victim that just shut up and put up isn't the right way to do things. You know, even if you don't have two witnesses, what can you constructively do to help that victim? And that's the real problem with the Jehovah's Witnesses. And that's the problem that I have, or the problem that you have, Cliff. I think that's the problem that most ex-Jehovah's Witnesses have and apostates have. It's not that we're trying to spread lies about your child abuse problem. We're not. Mm-hmm. We want you to fix the problem. And if you fix the problem, then it's not a problem anymore for any apostate, as you'd like to call us.
Exactly.
What you're doing is you're doing the right thing for the victims.
Right.
So do you have the facts? It's just a ridiculous article, especially when they're not even giving you facts or showing you how to get facts. I mean, if you look at the scriptures that they quote, Proverbs 18:13, first of all, when anyone replies to a matter before he hears the facts, it is foolish and humiliating. Yes, it is. But where are you going to hear the facts? Watchtower isn't going to give you the facts. Right. So if we give you facts, are you going to listen to us? But you're foolish and humiliating if you come and tell us that we're liars when you don't know the facts. That's a fact.
Right.
Then even, I think there's another paragraph, another verse, scripture that they quote, Proverbs 14:15, and it says, "The naive person believes every word, but the shrewd one ponders each step." And you know the difference between Jehovah's Witnesses and ex-Jehovah's Witnesses? Jehovah's Witnesses believe every word that's said to them from the Watchtower. They just have to write and they'll believe every single word. The ex-Jehovah's Witness will ponder each step. He's shrewd. He looks at everything the Watchtower's saying and tries to figure out, well, why are you saying that? And then we tend to know why they've said something.
Right.
And that's why we're shrewd and Jehovah's Witnesses are naive. And really, Jehovah's Witnesses would do themselves a favor if they did go and get the facts, because they're not getting the facts and Watchtower isn't giving them the facts, and that's a real problem that Watchtower has, and they need to address that themselves.
Absolutely. And this really seems like an example of hiding in plain sight, a little bit. Like, it's like the Watchtower is basically telling them what they need to go on the internet and try to research these facts. However, if you just present it in such a way that it is impossible that this applies to us, this just applies to everyone else, then you can kind of get away with some of these things. But that's the irony of some of these scriptures that, that you're mentioning. Do you believe everything that you're told? Well, from the Watchtower, I do, right? And they're saying, well, that's okay. That's all right. With everything else, you need to just question it and don't waste your time looking at it. It's really ridiculous.
It is, isn't it? It's actually I think it's frustrating for people like us when you can actually see this and you're kind of like, but look at you. You question everything that a newspaper article will say, but you don't question anything that a Watchtower says. And but if you look at Psalms 146 verse 3, it doesn't say that you don't trust man except the governing body. It says don't trust anyone, including the governing body, anyone. Just because he says he's a governing body member and that he has a direct line to God, even though he's not inspired, right? At least you should question his motives. You should always question a man's motive, because you do not know for sure that he is appointed by God, other than him telling you that he is.
And that's another amazing thing, talking about motives, because, just recently in that broadcasting, I don't remember exactly the month, but it's been, in the last few months, where Garrett Loesch was talking about trust. Do you, who do you trust? Do you trust me? I hope so, which is kind of creepy. But go ahead, please.
Yeah, because this is the big irony by putting Garrett Loesch out there, because Garrett Loesch is German. Now, my wife is German, right? And the thing is, by putting Garrett Loesch out there and said, do you trust me? That's like, he of all people should know that you don't trust someone, because the likes of Hitler came along and said, "You trust me," and look what he got all the people to do.
Good point.
Serious atrocities, and he of all people should know that you don't go trusting him or anyone else
Exactly.
without knowing what you're doing it for, and they don't provide that information to people. Like Jehovah's Witnesses do not know all the facts relating to how or why their leaders do certain things.
Mhm.
And you know what? It would be if these leaders really are God's spokesperson, they will be more forthcoming than anyone else. They will be an example to every other religion that they are more transparent. Because that transparency is what the whole Bible is based on. It's the whole Bible says is transparent. Like the whole Jehovah's Witness structure, they say that it's based on the Bible. But if the Bible wasn't transparent, they wouldn't have been able to create the system. But because it was transparent, they were able to create a system to be able to create their own system. But then they built in a whole load of secret systems within it that the ordinary JW doesn't know about. And what's so biblical about that? I mean, you have the likes of Mark 4:22, I think it is, that talks about all secrets will be uncovered, and they are being uncovered in the likes of Avoid JW and other, even your good self, Cliff, and other good YouTubers and other websites relating to XJW activities. They're bringing to light those that the Watchtower is trying to conceal.
Absolutely. And, we talk about this all the time, but the internet is really bringing some of this stuff to an end as far as the cloak of secrecy, because you can't really do it not successfully. And I always say, good luck trying to convince a millennial not to go online, not to research stuff and go online. And they seem to still believe that's a possibility and something they have, and, something they're able to do. And one thing that I was gonna mention, just kind of tying in a few different things. So, like from the Australian Royal Commission, we all remember Jeff Jackson's testimony and everything. And when the subject of apostasy came up, I remember, I don't remember the exact quote, but he said something to the effect of, this is when Angus Stewart said, "So would you agree that, when we're talking about child abuse, it's not always apostate-driven lies?" And he said, which I just thought was such a, just a misrepresentation, to put it very, very lightly. He said, well, it's not really about who's saying it. It's about if there's some basis to what they're saying. No, not based on this scripture, not based on this article at all, because it doesn't matter what we're saying, right? Anybody who's speaking negatively, potentially against the organization, is a liar, period. It doesn't matter what they're saying. And, it's just very strange. And the same thing, as I was mentioning with Garrett Loesch in that broadcasting, when he was talking about, you should trust the faithful and discreet slave and your brothers because they're doing things with the purest of motives. Well, how do you know? I mean, or how is it that you can make a statement like that and then just we're all just these evil, dark people that really our only motive is to just destroy people's faith and confuse them? It's just, and that's why I say hiding in plain sight. If you were to be able to step back from this for a second and just kind of see what's going on, then this belief system can't stand.
Yeah. So why? Yeah. It seems to me like this is the argument that comes up with Watchtower all the time, is that we're trying to break down the beliefs,
right,
and that we're trying to destroy their religion. Well, that's not true. I mean, there's a lot of ex-JWs that wouldn't be ex-JWs and have no interest in the JW religion as per se, and have no interest in their doctrine, and have no interest in following it. Or do they want people not to follow it? I mean, each to their own. I was just reading there on the XJW Reddit page about some guy from Scotland that came on, and he says he's got these JWs calling to his door, and he doesn't know how to get rid of them, but he's too nice to be able to stop them. And then he was like, what should I do? And then people were kind of giving him all suggestions. None of them were trying to tell him that you should try and tell them that they should change to another religion,
right?
Or that they have the wrong religion. Basically, it was like just tell them you're an apostate, or tell them anything that would just get them to kind of run away from you. So we're not trying to stop Jehovah's Witnesses believe in what they believe in. Everyone should believe what they want to believe in. I mean, you have Scientologists. I mean, you have tens of thousands of people there believing that nonsense. I mean, if you people believe in that, that's fine. If it doesn't harm anyone. Now, there's the argument that it does harm people. The same with Jehovah's Witnesses. If they were believing all that they believe, it wouldn't harm anyone per se if they didn't have the shunning and they didn't have the two witnesses. It wouldn't harm anyone. People could believe it. And you know what? Most ex-JWs wouldn't care. They wouldn't be. You wouldn't be on YouTube. I wouldn't be here to having a chat with you. We'd be just going, yeah, just one of those religions that likes to think that the end of the world is coming. Let them off. You know, so we're not trying to change them. What's happening is we're trying. Watchtower has set up a system where they have created that has made enemies for themselves, and they are the reason why apostates, as they call them, exist. Apostates wouldn't exist otherwise. Maybe they would. You might have a handful of people that are really about the doctrine and really have a problem with the doctrine, but a lot of religions have that. I mean, you look at the Catholic Church; they have an awful lot of rogue priests who have their own thing on Mary and whatever else and the Trinity. So you're always going to have them deal with those type of things. They're not going to harm you. Well, what's harming you is what you're doing to other people and other people's families, and how you're destroying lives through your transfusions and even through your child abuse policy and through your shunning. You're destroying lives that do not need to be destroyed, because if there's anyone going to destroy a world, if you believe what the Jehovah's Witnesses believe, is that Jehovah will destroy it anyway. So if we're doing anything wrong, Jehovah will do it. So why do you have to do it now? Because now they'll quote the scripture in First Corinthians 5, 11 to 13, where it talks about throw out the fella that calls himself a brother. Most of us don't call ourselves a brother. We have no interest in calling ourselves a brother. What that scripture is talking about, and if you go to 2 Corinthians 6, I think it is, Paul had to clarify what he originally said, because the Corinthians were taken out to the extreme. And he said, hang on, no, you're going too far here. You're making them overly sad. Watchtower has done that. They've made us overly sad, feeling really bad for ourselves, and that we're going to be destroyed at Armageddon. That's exactly what I felt when I got kicked out, because I'm like, why did they have to go that far? Did they really have to go that far? Am I that bad a person that I should be destroyed at Armageddon? Because the way you think of it is, once you're out there and you're disfellowshipped and you're not within the fellowship, and if you don't get reinstated by the time Armageddon comes, you're dead. You know, there's that mentality within us. And so Watchtower has created an extremely controlling and disciplinarian system that has created people that don't need to exist.
Absolutely. And I can't help but think of the classification of someone like you as an apostate, where literally all you're doing is producing information that they have published or they have produced, and you're just displaying it. Even in their very strict definition of apostasy, that's a stretch for somebody, especially for someone, like you.
Yeah. I find it interesting that they're trying to come after me with allegations of copyright when they're distributing that literature themselves.
Yeah.
Why stop someone who is distributing it then? I mean, imagine it was Jesus distributing the literature, and then another man was going along and got his literature and then distributed it, and he went around house to house. And the apostles went to Jesus and they said, Jesus, Jason down there is distributing your literature. Well, if he's not against me, he's for me, is what Jesus would say. Well, in Watchtower's case, well, if he's not, if he's infringing on my copyright, we got to send them serious letters, and we got to look out and find out who he is and who's giving it to him.
Right.
Yeah, because they're a Christian organization, and Jehovah is really looking out for them, and that's why they're being blessed, and that's why their numbers are increasing-ish.
Right. Exactly. It's truly a mess. So, Jason, it's really been a pleasure talking with you, hearing your story and hearing you talk about the Avoid JW site that you founded, and all of the very exciting things that are happening just in terms of informing people, getting people to make more informed decisions with whatever they decide to do. What I ask virtually all of my guests is for their thoughts and even potential words of wisdom for a few different groups of people. And the first one that I usually reference is those who are watching channels such as these and just starting to look into this information, who are still on the fence. and not sure as to what they're going to do, or what they believe at this point. What would you say to that group of people?
I think the interesting thing for a Jehovah's Witness, like we've always grown up that we're going to go to paradise. It's going to be here
Mhm.
imminently, and that we'll be happy and we'll be living forever and we'll be all perfect. Um, when you realize that that may not be true, and I say that may not be true because no one really knows what's true and what's not true, and there's no hard and fact rules. But what you got to realize is that the Watchtower Corporation has been saying since the 1800s that the end is imminent. Now you can put your life on hold, but and go pioneering and distributing literature, whatever it is, and that you think you'll be blessed by Jehovah for, and put your life on hold. But you got to expect that if you do so, that it's for the rest of your life. And if the end of the world comes before that, so be it. But it's highly unlikely. So what I would highly recommend you do is go and get an education. I can't stress that more than anything. Get an education, even if it's just for your own well-being, be it whatever subject that interests you, but go and do it. And it'll help you along in your life, and you'll enjoy your life a little bit more, even as a Jehovah's Witness, if you want to remain one.
That's very good advice. And in addition to that, kind of along similar lines, is those who have come to the conclusion that this organization is not something that they believe to be the truth any longer, and they're still just trying to catch their balance after having come to that realization. What do you think is important for them to keep in mind?
Yeah, I suppose this is where I've been as well. I suppose for a lot of us, we got angry. When I found out the truth, I got angry because I didn't like the fact that I was being lied to, or that there was secrets being kept from me, and
Mhm.
that those secrets were used against me. I mean, that was very hard. But then I suppose you come out the other end, and life gets better. And if you don't believe in a paradise becoming imminent, what do you believe in? Well, that's a decision you have to come up with yourself. I personally don't believe in anything. I just feel that I can get on with life. I have a wife, I have kids. I'm enjoying life. I'm enjoying time with them. I think the most important thing and the greatest blessing we have, whether it was a God that gave it to us or whether it just came about, is that we have families, that we have our those that love us and that we can love them. That's the greatest gift we get, and it's the greatest gift we can give. And other than that, everything else is a bonus.
Absolutely. And lastly, for those who are watching videos such as these that are just members of the general public who perhaps don't and never have had an affiliation with Jehovah's Witnesses, why should they even care about Jehovah's Witnesses and some of the subjects that we are discussing?
Well, I think the likes of the blood transfusion, you think of that for a moment. Jehovah's Witnesses like to make people think that that's a personal decision. It's not a personal decision. It's a personal decision to a point, and then when you go against the decision that the Watchtower is given, which is you're not allowed to have blood transfusion, you'll be disassociated. And now disassociated means that you did it yourself, as opposed to elders disfellowshipping you. But it's the same thing. Basically, they kick you out of the organization. It's just a play on words. And also, then you have about child abuse. I mean, Jehovah's Witnesses are calling door to door with you. How are you to know that the person on your door isn't a paedophile and that it's your children that are knocking on that open the door to that man or woman? You don't know that. And so you have to be concerned about how Jehovah's Witnesses handle child abuse, because they are knocking on your door.
Absolutely. Jason, I want to thank you again. This has been truly an honor and a privilege after accessing Avoid JW for so long, and that being so instrumental in helping me to fully wake up from my indoctrination. I want to personally thank you for that, and I'm sure I speak for thousands of people who have had similar experiences. And it's great to finally see the person that was behind Avoid JW, at least at the beginning. It's great to hear your story, see your face, hear some of your expressions. And I'm sure this is something that many people are going to appreciate. So once again, thank you again for speaking with me.
Thanks very much, Cliff. It's been an honor and a pleasure.